Rohner Press was founded in 1997. Bruno is a second-generation printer that realized the importance of craft and quality materials. From high-end packaging to full-on wedding suites, Bruno has grown his shop from a 300 square foot garage to a 20,000 square foot manufacturing facility, fully staffed and equipped to take on any printing challenge, which you'll see today in the webinar. He's going to walk all around his place. Bruno also offers a variety of print production services, including letterpress, engraving, foil stamping, embossing, die cutting, laser cutting, paper converting, all of it. So we're going to talk all about those today. So I'm going to pass it off to Michael to go ahead and get started.
Okay, great. Thank you, Paige. Before hello, Bruno, how are you?
Hey, Michael, doing well, thanks. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Before we get started, I just want to go back a little bit, and we talked about this before we went live. I think it's about 15 to 20 years ago, we had like an explosion or a revolution, if you will, in the letterpress industry, where anybody that had space, whether it be in a garage or in a basement or in a kitchen, or they made even a closet and they could fit a press in it, they would become a letterpress printer. Of course, it limited what they could do. Most of them, and I know that we talked about this, most of them did small wedding invitations, for friends or for, until they really got revved up. But the point I'm making is that what you do compared to that small little one press letterpress operation that happened is you do everything. I mean, you do literally soup to nuts. I mean, you do everything in-house. You do the printing, you do the blind embossing, you do the gold leaf, you do the packaging, you do the construction. There isn't anything as part of that process that you have to farm out, which makes you literally way above, way at the top in terms of, and you obviously present a prestige product, which we will be looking at during the next hour. So what I want to do is, a lot of people don't even know what letterpress is. There are some people that may be watching that don't really know what letterpress is, say, compared to etching. And, we sell into the etching market, the intaglio market. If you can give me a very kind of an abbreviated difference between what an etching is compared to what a letterpress print is.
Sure. So, and just to kind of, I agree with everything that you're saying about putting presses in very small spaces. So
we can talk about that. I know
we'll get into that a little bit more because it is a very interesting observation of how the industry is. But so in a brief description of an etching versus letterpress, an etching is it's etched into a plate, where with letterpress we are printing from a relief or above the surface of the plate, and both are pushed into paper. One of them, the etching, is actually pulling ink out of the etch, where letterpress is pushing ink onto the paper through the raised type.
Right. Okay. Both mediums, it's interesting, both mediums probably utilize the same quality or type paper, I would think.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. And that paper is really a key element to the finished product. It's hands down. I mean, the substrate is almost as important as the ink that you're putting on it,
right?
Or maybe sometimes more.
Yeah. So enter Legion Paper Company in terms of what we offer to the letterpress, excuse me, to the letterpress market. And I know that you have printed on, and we're going to look at a lot of these pieces. You have printed on almost everything that we have imaginable, suitable for whether it be offset printing or fine art lithography, as well as for letterpress. I mean, whether it be Lettra, whether it be Star Dream, whether it be our Colorplan range, Coventry Rag, let's talk about some of these substrates and why some of them have become somewhat favorites. Like Colorplan is a perfect example. of what you've used in the past. And the beauty about that is, and a lot of people who are not familiar with the range, I'll just say, Colorplan is 54 color range, a 54 color palette of 4 weights, 135 gram, all the way up to 700 gram. Not everything is available in all the colors, but 135 gram and 270 gram. What do you like about Colorplan so much?
There are a lot of things. First of all, the color palette is phenomenal. And in the past, we were always printing color on white paper to get a full bleed or a flood coat of color on whatever project, business, most often business cards, or note cards. And when Colorplan came out, we really dropped a lot of that printing and replaced it with paper. And it's just so much more consistent. There's less problems with offsetting,
Right.
ink rubbing. It's very stable in terms of its color. And again, the amount of colors to choose from and the weights are amazing. I mean, it is one of our favorites for sure.
Yeah. And also it's 54 colors of the exact same quality. I mean,
Yes.
It's not like you have to go to, well, there aren't that many commercial mills left, and that offer text and cover, but you wouldn't have to go to, say, 2 or 3 mills to fill a palette or a range of colors. Now you have, in one range or grade, 54 colors, which is, insane.
And beautifully curated too.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the key. I mean,
Exactly.
it's a really great color palette to work with and choose from.
Yeah, and then it's all available. It's all in stock, and also available, by the way, in envelopes. We don't stock the envelopes. We just to throw that out, and I guess we can post it page if you want with announcement converters that stocks our envelopes on Colorplan, right?
Yeah, I'll post it in the chat.
Yeah. So there's a lot to look at, Bruno. I know that, I really want people to get a feel for, what you as Rohner Letterpress, I almost feel like you should change the company name and not call it so much Rohner Letterpress. I know it's part of the generation, but it's so much more than that. As I mentioned before, it's so much more than that. Why don't we start breaking down start with the letterpress and then start breaking down some of the enhancements that you do to a piece of work that really is almost a piece of art, and some of the things that you showed me.
Well, then I just wanted to add one more thing with Colorplan too.
Yeah.
Is the different weights that are available. The heavier the stock in letterpress is for the end product is better. So also the toothier the stock, the end product is better. It allows us, I think I always explain it as like a marshmallow. Okay, there's a lot of air in paper, we can push the ink into that paper and take the air out, and it flattens it,
Right.
which is what gives us this dimensional quality that is, and I'm going to do air quotes, what people think of letterpress today. 50 years ago, not so much. It was, I mean, oh, you wanted to kiss a sheet, leave no impression. What we print in our shop today, I would have been like fired and thrown out the door of a letterpress shop 50 years ago. It was unacceptable in terms of quality.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's the kind of the fun thing, is that this industry is completely flipped over. And now the heavier the impression, the better. It's like people try to
what's
squeeze it as hard as you can.
Yeah, what's really interesting, Bruno, I haven't been to the new facility. I was at your, we talked about that earlier. I have not been to the 20,000 square foot space. I've been to, you've kind of made maybe 2 or 3 transitions since, over the last 5-10 years. Yeah.
Yeah, you were at a Ravenswood space, and then you were at our home in space.
Exactly.
And yeah, we just kept filling up. It just got
so
more and more.
Let's get a look at what a letterpress press looks like. I mean, if we can do that, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
let's
unhook
take a
my
little,
phone here and take you out to the shop.
let's take a little tour of the shop. I think that would
All
be
right.
really perfect timing.
I'm going to flip the phone right now, so bear with me for 1 second. And so you're not going to be seeing me anymore. So the grand entrance, we're walking out. When we built this space, we used this polygal material to let natural light come through into the shop. We didn't want to block it off. So we've got all natural windows lighting up our office in here. And so that light comes all the way through the shop. So yes, it is. It's 20,000 square feet of big space.
Wow.
So you're hitting us right now at the end of a shift. So there's not a whole lot going on. We start at 6 o'clock in the morning. So 2 o'clock, these guys are gone. But I can walk you through some of the equipment. This is what most people recognize in the letterpress world. It's a Heidelberg windmill. A very versatile machine. It has a small format of 13 or 10 by 15.
Now, how many fountains does that have, that press?
How many what?
How many ink fountains does that have?
One.
One. Okay. So you're printing one color at a time.
One color at a time. We're looking at the ink fountain right here. Ink is adjusted through ink keys on the back of the press. You can channel your ink, control ink volume, as well as they're pretty sophisticated, as old as they are. And ours are not that old. Ours are some of the latest models they've made.
That looks brand new. That press looks brand new almost.
It is probably from the late 1970s.
Right. Okay. Wow.
By the way, they stopped making this equipment in 1984 was the last windmill that was produced.
Wow.
So, yeah. And then, you know, if you take care of it, it should last my lifetime. And then probably, you know, someone else's too.
So now we have the paper has gone through that press, and let's single out one job and then go from there.
Okay.
It goes to what is the next stop?
Well, the first stop is pre-press, where the plates are made. And if you want me to, I can walk you into there and give you a quick glimpse of what that looks like.
Yeah, of course.
So we work primarily with photopolymer. Now, I know there's a lot of smaller letterpress shops out there that use still movable type, you know. There are some people that still are dealing with linotype. And so here's our pre-press room. And with linotype, you know, it still has its purpose in today's printing, but we made the move from day one to work with a photopolymer plate, and our plates. We chose to go with a metal back plate. Felt that it was a little bit more durable, and the durometer or hardness of the photopolymer was a little bit more substantial than what is referred to as a sticky back plate, which would give us better plate holdout and in longevity. And we have printed runs of over 100,000 impressions on the photopolymer plates.
Wow. Yeah, the only company that I can think of that prints from hot type right now is probably Arian Press in San Francisco. Yeah.
There's a studio here in Chicago as well, Star Shape Press, that she uses a lot of movable type. Yep.
Really?
She does,
wow.
Yeah, she does some really, really beautiful work. But you know, when I started in the business, my vision of letterpress was to be more on the commercial side of the print world as opposed to the artistic side of the print world. I felt that there was a market in especially bigger cities, Chicago, New York, you know, San Francisco, LA, that would accept that difference in print and that difference in quality versus, you know, some smaller places out there that just don't really appreciate it. It has an artistic side to it, but yet it's on a commercial level. Well, and that's really what I focused on.
Yeah, and it's more attuned to corporate work as well, right? Yeah, I would think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
So, you know, that being said, I was looking at ways to increase productivity and not have to hand set type and have a shop full of California type cases with movable type. And it just, as far as scaling, just was not a possibility, you know, I mean, take it to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, that in and of itself is a skill. I mean, is a real time-consuming skill. I mean, really, I mean.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I mean, unbelievable.
I mean, it was a trade. People made a living sending type. I mean, it's kind of hard to get your head around that today,
yeah. Right. So now we have the plates, and now where do we then we go to
so now now I'm gonna flip around again. Let me keep going back and forth here. There we go. All right, so back to the windmill. I'm hoping there's a plate mounted on here. So I just turned it on. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna open up. All right, so this piece right here is called a chase. I'm gonna take it out. This is what, it's magnetic. So our metal back plates, and I've just happened to have one right here. I'm going to see how well I can do this with one hand. So they just stick onto the metal, onto the magnet.
Wow, yeah, got it, right.
And what can be done then is in this chase, this magnet can then be moved around by furniture, what we refer to as furniture, which are wooden spacers. And then we have coin keys here, which are like wedges that can tighten down. And so we can move this plate now to get into register if you're doing multiple colors or if you're registering to an emboss or whatever. So it gives you flexibility to, you know, move the plate without having to pick the plate up and try to reposition it. It gives you great accuracy in terms of positioning and register.
Got it. All right, so now we've generated, you know, the press is now running, right?
Yep.
And whether it's, I mean, not physically right now, but so we're generating a printed piece, and then it goes to what?
So I couldn't hear you on that last bit.
So we generated a printed piece on press, and then what is the next step?
Okay, so once we have a printed piece, and I can take you over to here and show you our.
Well, that looks like Colorplan right there.
I believe it is. And so these are our business card masters. So we can just imprint with one color letterpress. So this sheet happens to be duplexed with two different grays. But once it's done, it comes off a press, the sheet's ruled up, it's brought over to the cutter, and it's either trimmed out on a cutter, and there's George working at the cutter. We use guillotine cutters. They're 36 inches wide, one clamp, knife comes down, boom, you can cut through about 500 sheets at a time. Or they come over to our die cutting department, which we have several pieces of equipment here. We've got a large cylinder press for die cutting, and then another windmill, but also larger format that has a packaging die, a box die locked up in it right now. Right. So we could either die cut shapes or, you know, die cut straight, square corners, round corners, you know, anything of that sort to finish the job.
Now that is a gold embossing, correct?
Gold foil stamp.
Gold foil stamp. Now, and that is done where? That's done in-house.
That's done in-house. That's back in the foil stamping department. So we're kind of departmentalized here because the workflow, it goes in, it's either foil stamping only, foil stamping and letterpress only, or, you know, letterpress and embossed or debossed. So this is our foil stamping department. And you can see we've got some foil dies out here on the table. We work with both copper and magnesium dies. It all depends on what we're doing and how hard we're hitting it. Magnesium tends to be a little less expensive, not nearly as durable. If you take a double sheet with magnesium, you're done. You're making a new die. Copper is more expensive, almost twice the cost of magnesium,
Really?
but it is so much more durable that like when we're doing book covers, we do a lot of case bound covers where we're foil stamping into, and I have some samples I can show you in the shop. You need that durability to really pound into the paper.
Wow.
So that's where the copper comes in.
Got it.
This particular machine here is a hand fed. Just based on the nature of our work, we do a lot of short run foil stamping. A lot of it tends to be for the wedding industry. I don't know if you can zoom in on that, but you can see the filled foil on there. Yeah.
Happy couple, huh?
Yeah, a lot of it is for the wedding industry. A lot of it is short run for the packaging industry as well. But then we also get into the versatility of the windmill, which this one has been converted to foil stamping only. It does not print anymore.
Right.
And you can see the ribbon of foil running up. And this was one that I was actually working on earlier today, and the foil dies peeking through back here.
Right.
And
You know,
again, it's like print through pressure. It's transferred, you know.
Yeah, the distinction, you know, getting back to what we were talking about earlier, Bruno, about the small little presses that have been set up over the last 20 years. I mean, you are fully automated, as opposed to a hand operated letterpress, small letterpress shop.
Well, yeah, going back to your opening statement, absolutely. Yeah. And the difference for us is actually the volume we can produce.
Right.
A lot of people are using either a treadle press or they're using even a handful press, very popular in small letterpress shops. But the throughput on that it's not a lot. The volume, right. You can't produce volume in terms of like the commercial world that we run in.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's timing. Yeah, all of our machines are automatic. You put a stack of paper in one end and it comes out the other.
Now you were talking about you know, this explosion, if you will, in the letterpress market. Kind of, you know, it didn't push you, but it really stoked you into really expanding your operation into soup to nuts. I mean, you know, correct?
Yes, that was the motivation to differentiate myself from the littler shops.
Yeah.
That we could offer everything under one roof, which also the benefit of that is timing. You know, if you're only able to do one element and then you have to send out for the die cutting or you have to send out for the foil stamping, you know, it's time and transportation. It just adds to the cost of the job. Therefore, we can be very cost competitive in today's market because it's all done here.
Yeah. Now, also from a presentation standpoint, you also do the packaging. I mean, you also create the boxes.
Correct.
Bruno, oh, there you are. Okay.
A phone call was coming in.
Okay. So why don't we take a look at, because you've done some incredible presentation boxes and delivery mechanisms, you know, delivery pieces that were phenomenal. You know, I'd like to get a look at some of those.
All right, I can spin around again here. All right, so this is kind of, for us, again, a very new offering. So we've got into what we refer to as, you know, wrapped cover boxes that have magnetic closures, that have die cut foam inserts, which you know, vary from box to box based on what's going in it. This is all custom engineered, particularly this one. This was for donations to big donors to Millennium Park in Chicago, and they got a mini replica of the Chicago bean that had to, you know, this box had to withstand, I think it was like 28 pounds of marble base, which was laser engraved, and then the bean itself, which weighed like 16 pounds.
That was in that
was inside the box. Yes.
Got it.
Yep. So this is all, you know, wrapped, foil stamped, you know, with all the magnets are all hidden up in here. So it's
now how many did you run? How many
on that particular one, it was small because the donations needed to be large.
Okay.
And so we ended up doing 50 of those.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Some of these, this one here, same situation, was designed to hold flooring samples. Again, all custom foam cavities. This one we end up doing like 250. And that's kind of where we fit, again, another niche in this industry. Is there's bigger players who make these boxes, but they want to make them by the hundreds of thousands. And there's very few people who want to manage, you know, these smaller runs, and they're very complicated, you know, as far as the engineering goes, and all the materials and the die cutting, and there's a lot of work that goes into producing those boxes.
I would, you know, Bruno, I would think that for the larger quantities on boxes like that, you know, this would go totally offshore. This would, you know, this would go to Asia.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the most part, it does.
Yeah.
And, but there's a need, and again, it's a timing issue. People, I kind of refer to these as influencer boxes, that they're going to big decision makers, and, you know, they need to hold and present something that is going to get somebody's attention.
Right. Right.
And so, you know, a lot of times these things are almost afterthoughts in terms of production. And then it's like, how fast can we get them? And if you go overseas, you're not going to get them fast.
No, especially now.
This one's wrapped in Colorplan.
Yeah, it looks like a gray,
Yeah.
you know, a light gray.
It's dark,
the light gray.
dark gray. Yep.
Yeah.
And foil stamped in black. And this one also, again, has foam inserts cut out for a specific product that goes in here.
Now, how tough is registration from an embossing standpoint?
On these boxes in
Yeah.
general, or just
Yeah.
in general?
Well, just in general.
It's not. Our presses have perfect registers, so we can register to print, or, you know, which is called a registered emboss, or we can do a blind stamp, which just kind of floats on the paper.
Right.
I'm a big fan of blind embossing. I think it really captures the beauty of the paper and the beauty of the art that's being embossed.
Well, as long as you're talking about blind embossing, I know you have some samples of some of the blind embossing jobs that you've done.
I do.
Yeah.
I got a couple right here. Hopefully I can capture. This is a sculpted emboss.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
So I guess it's still focusing well. So you can see there's multiple levels in this art that give it a sculpted shape.
Wow. Yeah.
And the detail, I mean, this camera's probably not doing well with detail, but I'm going to show you another one here with this chicken. And I mean, you can pick out, I mean, every little piece of
incredible detail.
Feather. Oh yeah. It's, and again, it's a sculpted emboss, but I mean, just the beauty of the paper and the type, you know, it's just, that's to me, that's the essence of.
Well, do you know what paper that is on?
This, I believe, is Mohawk Superfine.
Got it.
This, the which came first. This one is Letra.
Got it.
I'm gonna flip the camera again.
So let's go over a couple of really, because I know that you've done some exotic, I mean, really off the chart exotic pieces. I'd like to really, show some of that. I mean, some of them were just gorgeous. I mean, incredible pieces.
There's quite a few that we have done. Trying to think, Paige, I think I sent you some to put up in the post. Here's one.
Well, do we have slides as well, Bruno, Paige?
Yeah, I have some pictures that I can show for sure.
I've got a playing card deck in my hand
Oh,
that
yeah,
we did.
Yeah, I saw it. Let's see that one.
Is Paige showing it? Here we go.
Can you see?
Yep.
Yeah, can you go full screen?
How's this?
Well, it's not full screen, but.
Can you see these images large?
No, they're small scale.
Yeah.
Let me try one more thing real quick.
Otherwise, I do have one of them here.
How's this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's better.
Now, that looks like a translucent vellum.
Yeah. So that, again, the beauty of our equipment is allows us to print on different substrates. Those are Ziploc pouches that are very popular in the cannabis industry as well as the skincare industry.
Right.
And so what we can do is we can do small run foil stamping on those pouches already converted.
Really?
So it gives people the flexibility to, figure out whether or not that pouch is going to work for their needs without having to buy 10,000 of them, because that's also available on an inline in the manufacturing of those pouches. But the minimum orders, they're huge. You got to be, I think, at least 10,000 before
Really?
before.
Huh.
Can
that
you see
was
the
simple one color.
So
Yep.
these are match.
Those are match boxes.
Now
we produce those here in their entirety. So the only thing that's imported are the actual match sticks themselves. We manufacture the box, we put the match strike on, we do everything that you see, I mean, out the door finished matchboxes.
Now, who do you do this for? You do it through an agency, or is this done directly with, say, a restaurant?
That is done directly for a client here in Chicago called Match Daddy.
Got it.
And they have a real fun line of matchboxes. And this is just a small fraction of what they do. But we were doing it for another company out in California, and I'm gonna go ahead and flip my phone again. We were doing it for another company in California for a while, and they kind of got me into this and got my feet wet in terms of figuring out all the chemistry that is involved in creating the match strike. So we actually have developed an ink that we work with that allows the match head, when touched to it, to actually ignite.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Yeah. Huh.
the bags
More
again?
pouches. Yeah. That is your cannabis paper. That was a piece that we did for some pre-rolled, if I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah, of course.
In the cannabis, hey, that is a big part of the industry today, especially in the packaging side. It is that is just exploding. Again, those are more matches. That's also on your Miri Rainbow.
Right, that's another very popular line of ours that I know you've worked on.
Yep, foil stamps, great.
Right.
Yep, it's that was one color foil on that. There's the company, same company, Match Daddy here in Chicago.
Nice.
That is some soap bar packaging with a string and button closure.
Interesting.
Yep.
Now you do, this is all die cut in-house, all done in-house.
All done in-house, except the application of the button.
I got it.
The buttons were done in-house as well and die cut, and we supplied those to the company that manufacturer that adheres the buttons onto the finished piece.
Very
You don't
cool
see a lot
piece.
of that anymore. Most people think of string and button as your old school envelopes in like a law office, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the same as wax sealing, of envelopes. You don't see a lot of that anymore either,
You're right.
Yeah, I know. But that's a very cool piece. That's a very cool piece.
And then that is an engraved, black engraved playing card box. And I wish I could have gotten a little bit more detailed or closer in on the detail, but the engraving is, I mean, that's talk about another beautiful process that is underutilized. It is just, I mean, the crispness of the type and just line art is amazing. It's unbelievable the detail that you can hold in engraving.
Now you're supplied, Bruno, tell me if you're supplied with all the final art, or do you?
We are supplied. Yep, we are supplied with final art. So our primary client is going to be an agency, a design firm. We don't interact much with end users, so to speak, in the sense that we're not doing design for them on a particular project. We have the capability to do that, but it's something that we don't really offer much as a service because we work with so many great design firms out there. I felt like we'd be, kind of competing against our best clients.
Yeah, but you'll make recommendations to a particular design company in terms of the substrate they should consider using, or.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. We consult on that all the time, where they'll show us a design and ask for our input on terms of what papers would this be good on, or do we need to do anything to the art to make it better? And we can offer up those enhancements for sure.
And I would imagine a lot of times you'll even proof on a range of different colors or different substrates, so they can actually see what it's going to look like when it's a finished product.
Yes. Yep. And in case in point, we are working with a client right now where I think we went through probably 27 variations of papers, duplexing, ink colors, foil stamping, and to get them to be able to make a decision as far as what they really were looking for in their finished product.
I mean, to have that versatility is really, that's a win-win, really, for any design company or any corporation. To have the ability to have a shop that has the ability to do that and give them a variety of choices to make.
Yeah, oh, for sure. It is. Yeah. It is definitely, I think, a benefit to working with us is that you have all of that again under one roof.
Yeah.
And we can toggle back and forth between the two. So it's, if we're engraving something that also gets a letterpress or a foil, we know how to set jobs up to make that work together, well. You're not going to run into production issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Bruno, I have two questions that people are asking. The first is, what weight works best for the sculpted embossment?
That Letra is 110 pounds, and that works beautiful. It needs to be at least, I would say at a minimum an 80-pound cover. But the thicker you go, there's more room to push that paper again. If you go with a very thin, like a letterhead sheet, there's no loft in that paper. It's hard to make those different levels show, where with a heavier paper, those levels show a little bit easier. But
Yeah.
I would say, 100, 110, 120 pound cover. You can't if you go too thick, then it works against you as well. So,
I mean, Bruno, you've even done some work on some of our rising museum board,
oh yeah,
which is, when you think about it, here's a board that was made for matting and framing art, and it's a and it's a letterpress stock.
exactly. And it edge paints well.
Yeah, exactly. That's for sure.
Because it's
thick,
it's so thick.
Hmm.
Absolutely. It's
Right.
that's what people want to see.
I can just imagine, I don't know if you've ever done any work on 8-ply, the 120 point.
We have, I believe we have. We use 4-ply a lot. The 2-ply we use all of that, and for different. Some of it is used strictly for duplexing. Like people want a super thick piece, and we'll print on, a 100 or 110 pound cover, and then we'll mount it to a 4 or 8-ply museum board.
Right.
Generally, those get then, they're finished. They're either edge painted or edge foiled or something of that sort.
That's a gorgeous look. And really, and even if and then sometimes, do you have the ability to bevel it as well?
We don't. Beveling is, we gave it a real honest try for about 2 years and just kind of gave up on it. It is just
tough.
It's a tough one. It is a real tough one.
It's a tough one. I know. Paige, you had a second. That was another question.
Yes. Going back to the magnetic plate that you showed in the beginning, someone was asking, is that a piece of type on the plate to get it off the magnet easier?
Wait, I didn't quite get that question.
Is that a piece of type on the plate to get it off the magnet easier?
What we use to get the plate off the magnet is it's just a straight edge, like a razor blade.
Oh, he meant tape. Sorry, he meant tape. He just corrected me.
Paige is saying, is the tape there so it's easy to pull it off?
That was probably just the tape on the cover sheet that was protecting the plate. So when the plate is in a draw form, it has a like a clear plastic cover on it, and we peel that off, we expose the plate, and then that gets put back on just as like a protective layer, because they can chip if they're not handled properly, or if they're bent the wrong way, you'll pop the polymer off of the plate.
Interesting.
If handled properly, again, you get, you can run 100,000 impressions.
Yeah. I mean, the beauty of what you do is that you can do small and you can do grande, you can do large. I mean,
I didn't show you the large format presses. Yes, we can go up to 22 by 32 inches is our large format. We use that for either large production run of packaging where we'll put 10 boxes up on a form, or we use that for posters. Posters, that's another.
I've not known you to do poster work for letterpress.
Because it's expensive.
Oh, okay.
The polymer plates can be quite expensive, especially when you get into that large of a plate. But we have a couple clients that are diehard poster printers, and we've been doing work for them for almost 20 years.
Right.
And it's some real fun work.
Yeah. I would think digital, you do no digital at all, correct? No.
We do have some small format digital, which is this box right here I'm going to show you. So we also do foil sleeking, which is a digital process of foil. It does not require any foil plates. Completely different than what I was showing you out there. The beautiful part about digital foil is I'm missing one other piece. This gold foil that you're seeing here, that's considered to be a variable data on the foil end of it. So each foil is completely different, one sheet at a time. It changes foil.
Interesting.
So you can do variable data printing with foil.
Now
This
that's
is
the
another-
carrier for, is that for a deck of cards or?
Yeah, this is another card box. Yep.
Card box.
Yep. This
Very
is
cool.
digitally printed with a soft touch lamination on it, and then the foil.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So
Interesting.
yes, we do have some digital capabilities, but they are very limited, and work really well for certain things and don't work at all for others.
Yeah.
So
What was the most challenging piece that you ever had to do, Bruno?
I knew you were going to ask this question.
Well, I mean,
So
I mean, not the
boy.
one that, not the one that were you pulling the hair out of your head, but something that was
This-
a real challenge, and you were able to do it.
So we ended up, we were contacted by the bookbinders of Utah,
Mhm.
and they were working on the most authentic reproduction of the Book of Mormon since its original print.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, we're going like nitty gritty here. So they had an original book that they had paper made in a small mill, probably that, in Montreal, Canada,
Oh yeah.
to
Sure.
simulate the exact paper that was used in that book. And the inconsistency of the paper was probably what you would have got around the time the book was printed.
Uh-huh.
So we were dealing with, in the same lift of paper, anything that was like 3 points to 11 points in thickness.
Really?
So our presses couldn't calibrate, because you'd go from like a tissue paper to a cover stock and then everything in between. And we had contracted with them to print 1,000 copies. And all the pages were scanned and then made into photopolymer plates. The irony of this whole project is that the inconsistency of that paper
Right.
and the print led to, like, literally they were blown away by how original this finished piece looked. I mean, it was
Right.
really, it was a phenomenal job, but we were on press for, I think, almost 6 weeks.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
Sounds like a Saint Armand paper, right?
I don't recall, actually. I don't, but it
Yeah,
was,
it was from Montreal. It was probably, Saint Armand.
Yeah.
So you don't have a sample of it? No.
I don't have a sample. No, they're
No.
too expensive, but
Yeah.
I do have a couple folded signatures that went
yeah.
into the book. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But
So-
yeah.
But from a corporate standpoint, I mean, that's really, that's an oddity. But from a corporate standpoint and packaging, what would you say was a challenging piece?
Well, the challenge sometimes comes into it's in the finishing
Mm,
of like the die cutting can be very complicated. And that's where our laser cutters come in, because we are able to cut things that just can't be done by steel rule die. But it's also the actual finishing and converting can get very complicated, and you're dealing with certain papers, and whether you're with the grain or against the grain. And then you've got all the challenges of different adhesives that we work with for, that have different properties. Sometimes, I mean, there's times where it is, you're figuring it out
yeah.
as you're going through it,
Right.
because certain adhesives that are, supposed to work don't. And or certain foils that are supposed to work don't. Foil can be very challenging. Foil is probably the most challenging substrate that we work with, because every paper is different. Every paper reacts differently to foil. And, a client will oftentimes spec, like, we want to use a Kerrs foil or a crown foil or whatever, general row leaf.
Mm,
And we get to press and that foil doesn't stick. It just doesn't work. So now you're like cycling through every gold foil that you have in your inventory to find one that will actually work for the job. And usually you do, but that can be the most frustrating part is just,
Now, Now, with your invitation work, I am sure that, the brides and more the brides and the grooms, obviously, but, or maybe even the mother-in-laws, come to you with come to you with designs, and they want this, they want silks, they want enhancements. How crazy does that get for you?
It can be real. That is, we try to actually buffer ourselves from the actual end user in those situations. We do work with several large wedding companies that they are the go-between.
Oh, so you don't deal with the bride. Yeah.
No, we don't. We learned really quick that it was not in our best interest and the best use of our time to do that. But we have some great relationships with people who are the go-between. But those can also be very challenging. We had one go through the shop last week that was, it was a doozy. It had everything. It was digitally printed, letterpressed, triplexed, die cut, edge painted, and and then like 9 different pieces.
Did they get married? Did they finally get married?
Yeah, well, it just went out the door, so I hope so.
What did it look like? Where is the piece?
I got to see if I have one. Hold on a second. I might have one.
So and also, Bruno, let me ask you this: do you have any stat wedding invitations that are, you would always, there were stationary places you would go in and you would have an album of invitations, and you could pick something that was right off the rack, so to speak.
No, we have thought about that.
Everything is custom made.
Yeah, everything is custom made. We have thought about that, and we partner with retailers who do that. So we're their manufacturing partner. We let them go into, I'm not allowed to say their name, but we let them go into their stores, figure out what they want, and then we print it. So this is I'm going to do a flip on the camera here for the one. So here is. So this was digitally printed and then edge painted. It's kind of hard to see the edge painting here. Die cut, all the corners. Right. So this is just one of the 9 pieces that went along with that suite.
My God. Oh boy.
Yeah, that's pretty typical. Some of the wedding suites can get really complicated.
Yeah.
That was for us, our biggest challenge last year, is that business just evaporated. Literally, it was off. It just went away.
Is it coming back?
Yes, it is coming back. It's coming back hard.
Well, my next question,
which is good,
because my next question was going to be, how impactful was the pandemic to things, and what do you see now as it's kind of more people that get hits in the arm and and get vaccinated, and the more things that open up. It's not, there's a light in the tunnel, but
we're not out of it yet.
We're not out of it yet.
No, right. We're not out of it yet. So the pandemic for us or for Rohner personally was hard. We literally did like a hard shutdown for about 2 months. The shop never really closed. I went back to my little 300 square foot garage, and it was me doing everything. So wow. I would come in, make plates, print the jobs, cut the jobs, get them out the door. I did that for about 6 weeks. Josh, who's my right-hand person here, does production estimating. He was working remotely, so he would get stuff put into the system. Clients, the packaging side of the business stayed pretty consistent through the pandemic, but it was our next biggest silo is social stationery and wedding. Right. And that just literally stopped.
People that were supposedly getting married, everything was pushed away or pushed back.
One of our large retailers that we work with, during our high season and wedding, we can do anywhere from 20 to 30 orders a day for them.
Wow.
We were lucky if we were getting 3 orders a week.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But the good thing
So
is that you see it coming back, you see it picking up.
yes, absolutely. It is definitely every week that goes by, it seems to be getting stronger and stronger. Especially on the wedding side of things and packaging too. And right now, what we're really seeing is resurgence. A lot of our restaurant clients are now reaching back out to us, giving us the heads up. Hey, we're opening in 2 weeks and we need all of this stuff,
So what would you do for you do the menu, you do the
we'll do mostly menu covers and then like blank menu paper that would have like an emboss on it or a foil stamp or some embellishment. Most of the restaurants we work with are imprinting their menus on a daily basis because that's just the kind of place they are. Their menus constantly changing. So yeah, it's nice to get those calls and say, hey, we're coming back.
Yeah, I mean, we lost a lot of restaurants in the in every major city. I mean, there's,
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah, crazy. Paige, did you?
There is a question. So how do you decide on what paper you're going to use for a specific project? Does someone come to you and just say, I'm looking for a gray paper, and then you suggest what you have, or how does that work?
Well, excuse me. So it's a little bit more than that. So seeing art is always a real strong point in being able to kind of get the full scope of what the job is going to be. And so by looking at art, if a client says we're looking for a gray paper, and gray papers are probably one of the hardest colors to find because there are not many of them out there. We look at what is this piece going to be? Is it going to be a card? Is it going to be a box packaging? We look at durability. We look at, how tight the paper is in terms of fiber. Are they looking for texture? All of that comes into play when we're actually making a paper recommendation. And then also we kind of stick with papers that we know perform well. That's the one thing. It's like when we print a lot of Colorplan, we love it. We know it's consistent. We know it's predictable. We know how it's going to work, and there's no surprises. So
and I think there's 4 shades of gray in Colorplan.
Yeah.
4 shades of gray. I mean, if you looked at all the grays that we carry, besides Colorplan, there's the Stonehenge range. There's 2 shades of gray. There's
newsprint gray.
Yeah, newsprint grays. There's Somerset. There's a gray in there. There's Reeves BFK. There's a gray in there. Right. So we probably have under one roof, we probably have a dozen grays to choose from.
Right.
Easily a dozen grays. And which segues into black paper. And I know that you've done some work on some of our ultra black. Yes,
the Sirio. We love it.
The blackest black made.
It is dense. Yes, it is. It is definitely. We just did a project for a candle company on that. That was gold foil stamped, and the criteria was, I need the darkest black paper available, and I'm like, I got just the one for you. Wow. And also the array of weights that comes in
comes all the way up. Yeah. Exactly, all the way up to 700. I think 700 gram. Yeah, 700 gram. Heavy, pretty heavy. Paige, did you have something else? I'm sorry.
So there are a few more questions. This one just came in. Just trying to scroll up to it. Have you ever done specialty beverage packagings, like for breweries or wineries?
We've done labels.
And to go along with that question, have you had any challenges with the moisture that affects the label?
Well, the exterior, the outside, the paper itself will always be subject to moisture. The biggest challenge on the label is the adhesive.
Yeah.
And so we apply all of our own adhesives to the labels that we manufacture. We have the ability to do that. It's a roll to sheet process. And it just gives us, again, it gives us the greatest control over the finished product. But we have tested adhesives, many adhesives. We have one that we really like, that meets all of the criteria of like putting wine bottles in, ice buckets and letting them sit overnight to make sure the labels don't peel off.
Do you do that test? Do you actually do that? Yeah.
We do test that.
Yeah,
Yes,
wow.
we do test that. We also, some of the coaster stuff we get into, we also have to test because we've had issues, especially with colored stock, that once moisture hits that, they bleed. And the
Interesting.
last thing you want is someone sitting, at a dinner table at a fancy restaurant and they've got, black ink or
Right.
black dye
Yeah.
on their white shirt because the
Interesting.
coaster's bled.
Yeah.
So we got to be
Interesting.
very careful with that.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
And then this is
But-
a interesting, I'm sorry, do you have more
No,
to say?
I'm done. No.
So this is an interesting question. So given the multitude of paper options in the market, what's something you would love to see that has yet to be done by a mill?
Wow. Well, right now, what I'd love to see, and Michael, this is no disrespect to you, this is the whole industry in general. We need inventory.
Well,
it is
Yeah.
paper right now is the most challenging part of our business. It used to be you could go onto a website, you could find what you want, you could tell them how many sheets, you put it in the cart and you check out, and that was it. And now it's
So-
like you're chasing stuff down because it
Yeah, well,
doesn't
here's part
exist.
of the problem. I mean, part of the problem is as a result of the pandemic, shipping and getting product from overseas, especially, is really, it's very challenging. It's very challenging. And a lot of the manufacturers during the pandemic had geared down, and now they're back gearing up, and some of them are just filled, totally full. And getting product out of those facilities is very, very challenging, very difficult. From a shipping standpoint, especially if you're bringing in product from overseas. I mean, staging containers to pick up product is, I mean, it's like, it's a nightmare. It really is a nightmare.
I heard something that all those containers are over here in the United States.
Well,
And very few of them are going back to where they originated from.
Well, it's not unlikely that you'll see queuing up of containers waiting to get into a port. Literally waiting to get into a port. And once it's in a port, it doesn't get unloaded like on the snap of a finger. I mean, you're adding at least 3 to 4 weeks, to your receiving of product, a minimum of 3 to 4 weeks. I mean, sometimes more, especially from overseas.
But to Paige, to come back to answer that question directly, I think that there's the papers that are available today pretty much cover all the bases. We've got recycled content from, post-consumer to just, virgin fiber recycled from a run. We have, cotton content, bamboo content. We have, there's hemp fiber. All these things that are in paper that enhance the quality. I mean, to say we need a paper that looks like this, I couldn't put my finger on that. But there are so many great papers that exist already in your library that cover just about every base, in terms of thickness and texture and all of that.
Well, we got 2 warehouses filled with it. I mean, that's for sure. And that's for sure.
But there's nothing that I could say that is like that there's a void in the marketplace in a particular grade or segment of paper.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, Bruno, is that because Legion sells into so many different markets, whether it be a printmaking grade, I mean, you as a letterpress fine art, I consider it a fine art letterpress shop, you print on papers that we sell for fine art reproduction.
Yes.
Whether it be the Somerset, or whether it be the Coventry, or whether it be the Arsh, or whether it be the Reeves, these are papers that you lean to as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And print great for letterpress.
They
Print
do.
great-
They
print great
have
for
all
letterpress.
the qualities, you know,
Yeah.
the ink sticks, which is, I mean, important. And they just, you know, they're soft, tactile papers that
Right.
that
Very
really,
little surface sizing on a lot of those
Yeah.
printmaking grades, which make them
Yeah.
perfect for letterpress printing.
right. And with letterpress, you don't need that surface sizing like you
Right.
do for offset printing. I mean,
Correct.
we can
Exactly right. Exactly right.
we can, you know, that's almost like you can skip that process of the paper when you're making it.
Exactly. Exactly. Paige, I'm interrupting you. I'm sorry.
We do have one more question. And before I ask it, I just want to let everyone know that I posted a link to your website, Bruno, in the chat, and then also to our YouTube
Thank
channel.
you.
So the question is, letterpress make ready is often a case study of creative problem solving. What's your favorite creative, weird, bizarre solution that somehow made the job work?
Formica. So with early on in my business, it was always, you know, the problem is when you're trying to get a deep impression into a sheet of paper, you try to avoid blowing through the backside. So you know,
right.
what we were always challenged with is a deep impression that looks great, but you're not getting braille on the backside of the sheet.
Yeah, you're not pushing
And
through, right?
You're not pushing through. And so what we found is that we would buy sheets of Formica and trim them down to the size of the press bed, and we would use that as packing. Now, I've become a little bit more sophisticated. We're no longer using Formica, but we use a glass board, which is available through any, you know, foil stamping supply house, and it comes in various thicknesses. I prefer the thinner one that's about 15 thousandths of an inch
Right.
thick. And because it allows you to still pack underneath it or on top of it to get your ultimate result. But it is that is really probably one of the miracle boards out there for our industry. I'm giving away
Right.
my trade secrets.
Yeah, well, I'm sure I'm sure you have a lot more. I'm sure you have a lot more. Look, Bruno, I can't thank you enough. I mean, really, thank you for carving out an hour of your day.
Oh, pleasure. I'm glad you asked me.
And I'm sure there are so many other things that we can go into and talk about. But you know what? I really appreciate it. I mean, you do some incredible stuff.